In the 6 months since moving to Bauer House, we have seen the Lord work in many ways and have experienced a great blessing as a result of moving to this facility. We are looking forward to a year full of opportunities to bring the riches of the Lord's recovery to many seeking ones not only in the UK but throughout Europe. We are very pleased that the Lord has opened up this new property for us and pray that He will fully use it with His goal and purpose in view. One of the highlights of this past autumn at Bauer House was a series of forums held for Chinese-speaking students. Because there are a large number of Chinese students in the UK and in Europe, we are picking up the burden to try to reach them with the high gospel. On 4th of November 2005, 20 saints visited Bauer House from the US and Taiwan to begin this labor. They started their trip by hosting a question and answer forum for gospel contacts with a dinner and gospel meeting in central London. They then formed into 3 teams and travelled to 5 other cities in the UK, doing the same thing together with local saints. Some of the team also travelled to 6 cities in Europe. In every city the brothers visited, there were many students who received the Lord, were baptized and were interested in being contacted for meetings. We feel that this was due to much prayer behind the scenes, as well as much labor beforehand by the saints in each place who had distributed gospel invitations and invited students they knew. After the European trip, the final pouring out of the Lord's blessing occurred at the first Chinese-speaking conference in the UK, hosted at Bauer House, with over 200 saints in attendance. Many of the students who had come to the first forums in London came to this glorious blending time. There continues to be more and more students responding to our labour, and there is a great need for these ones to be brought unto maturity by the shepherding of saints who are willing to come and labour in the fields here. In order to continue in the shepherding of the thousands of radio listeners in London, we have begun a series of seminars on the economy of God. These seminars will continue every Lord's Day for 10 weeks in 2 locations in London, one of which is Bauer House. There are currently 12,000 people on our database to whom we have sent invitations, some of whom have been receiving the ministry. Also, in keeping with Brother Lee's strong burden for training and the perfecting of the saints, we have just begun the 32-lesson God-ordained way training at Bauer House. Many of the saints who are attending this training are those who have recently completed the 96 lessons. Most of these saints are radio listeners who have been captured by the ministry of the age and see the need for training and are willing to pay the price to be trained in an ongoing way. It is our hope that these times of training could also provide an opportunity for the saints who are faithfully standing as the Lord's testimony in small localities throughout Europe to gather together at Bauer House to be strengthened through fellowship and blending. This year we have an unprecedented number of over 22 conferences being held in different localities in the following countries throughout Europe and the Middle East: Belgium, France, Germany, Greece, Holland, Ireland, Israel, Italy, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Slovakia, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom. 3 of these conferences are for young people, and 3 are for Chinese-speaking people. In this second term of training at Bauer House, we have a total of 27 trainees from the following 17 countries: Austria, Brazil, Croatia, China, France, Germany, Ireland, Lebanon, Lithuania, Malaysia, New Zealand, Poland, Portugal, Romania, South Africa, the United Kingdom, and the United States. May we continue to pray for young people to be called out of every country to be trained. Bauer House recently hosted 43 trainees from the full-time training in Anaheim who traveled here to join the FTTL on a 10-day gospel trip of cities in the UK and Ireland. Several teams joined themselves to 6 of the districts of the church in London and went out with the saints to university campuses. Others went to Birmingham, Cambridge, Ipswich, Nottingham, Norwich, Oxford, Reading, Dublin and Belfast. The saints used the Rhema cards and books to reach people, setting up tables on the campuses and on busy streets. On the last day at an overflow meeting held at Bauer House, the sense from the reports was that the fields are white and we need to beseech the Lord of the harvest to thrust out the workers. Many shared about how open people were and how the literature tables were crowded even before they could finish setting up. Some testimonies include an atheist man who strongly called on the Lord Jesus in the middle of a busy London street, a security guard in Dublin who came to ask the saints to move their table and leave the area and instead received the gospel on the spot, declaring to his work colleagues, "I've got God in me." And a man in Belfast who announced to a shopkeeper after he refused to place a card box in his shop, "The Bible is not religion, it is the truth." Another trainee gave a card to a Chinese student and preached the gospel to her. She was stirred up about the Lord being the life-giving Spirit who wanted to get into her spirit. She was eager to know when she could receive the Lord, and when the sisters told her, "Right now," she called on the Lord and was happy and shining. The Lord was able to pour out His blessing because the local saints entered into the gospel preaching and Rhema distribution in a full and complete way, opening their homes, their hearts and their refrigerators, hosting informal gatherings and times of blending and enjoyment, night after night. And because the trainees who came from the full-time training Anaheim were open and willing to present their bodies, wanting to go out day after day to gain more and more people, refusing much-needed rest just to go out one more time. During this time, over 90,000 Rhema cards were distributed, with 3,500 card boxes set up, and approximately 2,000 copies of Rhema Set 1 given away. This includes the Gospel of John and the basic elements of the Christian Life Volume 1 with an offer card for Set 2. Bauer House has been a wonderful blessing to the Lord's move in Europe. It is our hope that the saints all over the earth will receive the blessing by entering into the burden for Europe. Brother Lee spoke of 3 ways to enter into the Lord's move. May we all continue to pray that the Lord of the harvest would thrust out the workers for the furtherance of His move in Europe.